Good. Okay, 7 o'clock. I'll call the regularly scheduled select board meeting of 25 April to order and seek approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Moved and twice seconded. And are there any amendments to the agenda? Any additions? And we do not have a executive session? All in favor of approving the agenda as written, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Would solicit approval of the minutes, or motion of approval of the minutes for April 11th regular select board meeting.
So moved. Second?
Moved and seconded. We still have the food coma.
No, I just didn't want to give some
Another
option.
Are there any additions, changes, amendments?
No.
Nothing?
I didn't have any.
Wow.
I didn't have anything.
Then, with hearing no changes to the April 11th regular select board minutes, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Then I would also solicit approval, a motion to approve the April 18th special select board meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any changes to that set of minutes?
Nope.
Additions?
Nope.
No? All in favor of approving them as drafted signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
One abstention.
And one abstention. Okay, citizen comments. Is there anyone, you're here to speak of something that's not on the agenda?
I am.
Okay, please come forward then.
Stand?
Just, no.
Sit here?
Right here, because this is broadcast and the mic will pick
Right,
up your
okay.
voice better.
All right. My name is Rick Novak. My wife and I, this October, moved into the apartment in 54 Main. So, from the country, where I had 3,000 square feet and 2 barns. And I'm here to talk about parking.
Okay.
54 has no parking, no designated parking, nothing, as do most of the places around here. We're all at the mercy of street parking in one way or another. And street parking is fine at night, but it is not during the day, and it's going to get notably worse when upwards to 30 spots are going to be removed downtown because of the bridge work right away, the new bridges. That's what I read in the paper. Now, I hear that maybe they're going to modify that and do fewer parking removes, but it's a storm, and it's going to come, and merchants are going to start yelling. But they don't really care yet, but they will soon. I ride a motorcycle, and I have noticed that there is no motorcycle or designated small car parking in town. Now, we all know of spots where 1 or 2 or 3 motorcycles could happily park without getting in anybody's way, any turn radiuses, any of that. One in particular crosses my mind next to the housing project down below the library there. The car with the 2 flat tires, that square, 4 or 5 bikes could park there. And I know that that would require a tweaking of vehicle definition. And I'm here to propose that that be done so that the chief could kind of reestablish some of the motorcycle parking that used to exist down there, and then it was changed out for various reasons when that lot was repainted. And I'm sure there are others. I just happen to know of that one because it's right nearby.
I'm sorry, where did you say?
Pardon me?
Where is the lot that you're talking about?
The one right below the library.
Below the library.
I know that it has a name, but I don't know it. And there's spots there. It's a question of the triangles, the dead corners, and things like that. And a motorcycle can legally fill up an entire car spot. One motorcycle. And it would be nice, and it would be, most motorcycle riders are comfortable with having tighter parking. So that if, and I'm sure you see it, I don't know if it's legal or not for more than one motorcycle to occupy a car slot. I didn't read, I read through the parking regulations. I didn't see that there was a specification that more than one vehicle could fit in one spot. So the rules would have to be changed, which is easy. Maybe not easy, but it would free up some spots.
Okay. So we actually have committees that will be one of the issues that we have to undertake is a look at the parking, and I think you've made a couple of suggestions that we can certainly.
Right. This is my starting point. Oh, actually, it's not my starting point, but I'm happy to pursue my part of this further.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I knew that's going to be required.
Yeah.
So, what's next?
What do you mean, what's next?
How can we make this happen?
At first, it will go to Susan's Infrastructure Committee,
Mm-hmm.
and it's part of a larger, I think, issue is what we're doing with the bridges, and then
Oh,
how
it's
we
huge.
handle
It will color everything that goes on here for years.
Yeah, I think we're prepared to address that, though, so,
It makes sense. It's logical.
yeah.
And it's safe, and it addresses the needs of some of the citizens in a good way, I think, and or visitors, because that's what's going to happen, is the word will get out. There's no place to park in Middlebury, don't go there and spend your money. I mean, that's going to happen. And we hope it doesn't happen for 3 years. So, it doesn't affect me personally. I'm not a retailer.
Ta-da! It's green up time once again. A bag for you, sir. A bag for you, madam. Yes, 2 bags for you. You need exercise. Yes, indeed. There we go.
Okay.
Something for everybody on the 6th. Oh, I'm shorting you, Susan.
Thank you.
I'm shorting you, Susan. There we
I'll
go.
have 2, please.
Aha.
Thank you.
But I have more in here.
Oh,
And
oh.
for you, sir.
Oh, thank
For
you
you,
so
sir.
very
and
much.
if you would like more, there are more.
Okay.
On the 6th of May, 1 week from this Saturday, we already have Captain Greenup, also known as Pete Brakely, will be out with his troops. And Dorothy Douglas, who is the queen of Greenup, she greens all year long. You cannot believe what this woman does. So every one of you needs to get out there. And you think you're getting off? No way. No way. Woo, you get a long one, John.
Wow.
There, there. There we go. There we go. Yes. So, organize your neighbors. Unfortunately, it seems to me this year is worse than it's ever been. But maybe it's just that I'm getting old and you can still see it. I'm a little worried. You may have 2, John. You may have 2. Fill them both. Fill them both. And if you have people who want them, there are bags available at the Ilsley Library, at the National Bank, at the Public Works Building, at the Addison Independent, and if you have any other thoughts as to where they might usefully, what's happening here? There, thank you, sir. Here, your own. You think they're gonna get away? No, 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 you may be together, but I'm sure you could fill 2. I'm sure you.
Rick, can we get your information so we can keep you informed on?
I was thinking that
that.
that might be useful. Should I give that to you?
Good exercise.
You.
For a good day.
Your contact is from
And
there.
please, please, please get your neighbors out. And what was it you did?
Where are the drop-offs this year?
Yes.
Did we
The
decide?
drop-off, there will be a town truck over here at the park. There will be a town truck at recreation by the pool.
Good.
So if you can bring them there. And then also at the town public works building on Route 7. I would also say Vermont Coffee is going to be out. Agrimart is going to be out. And, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting someone. Oh, Community Foundation has always been out too. Other businesses too. Anybody, pick your spot.
What does that mean when you say that they're out, those
Out-
companies?
Out gleaning.
Oh, they'll be,
Gleaning.
it's not that they're going to have special
And if you're lucky, you could
collections.
get deposit bottles.
Uh-huh.
So you can leave it on the side of the road for the trucks to pick
No,
up?
we would discourage leaving it on the side of the road.
But I've seen it every year, people
I
leave them,
know,
right?
I know. In some towns, that's what happens, is they
Yep.
leave it on the side of the road, but we've kind of abandoned that.
It's good to know that.
And right now, we do not have a distribution spot in East Middlebury. I will get to the library on Thursday. I'm pretty sure they will, although unfortunately, their hours are not all that ample. But there we are, there we are. So come on, team, get out there.
I'd also like to add, Peg, that on that day, in the afternoon, well, actually all day, the food co-op will have the Addison County Solid Waste Management District there to talk to you about all your questions about waste removal and collection, including how to compost food scraps, so you should.
Green up first, get up early and green up first, and then you can slide by the co-op, get a little something to eat. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Peg. So Rick, you've duly noted, and it'll get to the committees, and that's a project that we will have
Okay.
to address
Great.
soon.
Could I
Thank
raise
you.
a question on this before?
Not
Sure.
really. We're already,
Well, I just have a question that you have an apartment and there's no parking provided.
Oh, no.
I assume that if you rent an apartment, you have to provide parking.
I think that's kind of honored in the breach as often as it's honored in the doing.
It would seem to me that that would be something to look into for future ordinances.
Well, there's talk of a ramp over here. Talk is cheap, money's dear.
Well, I'm not talking about talk, I'm talking about the fact that if someone rents an apartment, that to provide a designated parking place for it, so that people who rent apartments don't have to park their cars out on the street.
It'd be lovely.
Well, I'm suggesting that maybe it ought to be a law. That's what I'm saying. I thought it was, and I'm mistaken. But if it's not, I think it would be something that should be considered. So thank you for bringing it up.
Sure. All right. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
please, Ann. Liquor licenses.
Actually, I just want to say, the manager for Ovation Entertainment is here, so if you want to come up here, just in case they have any questions. Oh. Okay. And that's it. Yes.
Yeah, I know.
gonna
Don't
say-
ask me anything hard, okay?
So they've got their application in, the inspection has been done, and all fees are paid, and today you got in your
Yeah.
lease agreement with the college. They're at Kirk Alumni Center.
Yep.
And, yes,
Okay.
so from our perspective, everything's set, so if you have any questions.
I don't have any questions. Do you have any questions for me?
Last year.
It went well. It went very, very well. Learning curve, as always. I feel as if everybody that were members there really accepted us being there. Everyone followed the rules perfectly. We caught people before they went out, and they were fine with putting their coolers back in their cars or letting us hang on to them until they were done. So I was actually very pleased with how the year went.
And this is the first-class license and an outside consumption.
Yes. Yep.
I'll make a motion that we approve the application for the 2017 liquor license and outside consumption permit for Ovation Entertainment, doing business as above par, as authorized by Ann Webster. Or to authorize you to sign
To
it.
sign for you?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, got another year at it.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Anne, thank you. Sorry for the last minute.
So we need to undertake the annual appointments. And at our last meeting, we nominated a full slate of, I think there's maybe one that we have more candidates than we have positions. There's the Planning Commission.
Yep.
And
And then Lillian's.
the Design Advisory Committee, there's 2 open positions and an alternate, so we would need to identify which was the alternate.
Mhm.
And to note
Lillian.
that Lillian Snow applied for both the Design Advisory Committee and the Parks and Recreation Committee.
She cannot be on the Parks and Recreation
Right,
Committee
and I've
by...
discussed that with her, and she thought that that may be the case, and is happy with the Design Advisory Committee.
Okay. So have you already pulled her off from the
I
Parks?
haven't, she's still on the list, so you'll
Okay,
want to...
we would need to pull her off based upon the conflict of interest.
So we
So
would
those
still
three-
have one open position on the Parks and Rec Committee then?
Right. If we take them one at a time, as far as the ones we need to make a decision on, the Planning Commission, with the 3 that we're currently serving, have all expressed interest in continuing to serve.
They have.
So I thought John Anderson was questionable. Did he confirm
He
that?
confirmed that he's
Okay.
interested
Okay.
and would like to. We have traditionally not pulled someone off from a committee
Right.
that was serving on that committee.
So John and Sam are the ones that are currently serving?
And Sarah,
And Sarah
all
as
3
well.
of them.
Okay.
So maybe we could just encourage Frank to attend the meetings if he wants to. and
I
he's
think that might
interested.
be a good way to do that.
Jennifer, who was interested in the Selectboard position, Jennifer, right?
Jennifer is our planner.
Jennifer,
No, the one
yeah.
who applied for the Selectboard.
Oh,
function.
yeah,
So.
Oh, Jennifer Molyneux.
yes.
Yeah, have we, is she interested in?
She,
Coming on to-
she got her letter last week,
Mhm.
and so she had asked me, because it said that the deadline was the 7th, so I explained to her she could still do, I don't think she's interested in serving on Parks and Rec right now, or the Planning Commission, so, unless she's contacted Kathleen, so,
I haven't
I don't
heard from
think so, so.
You know, last time we were talking about Travis and Gary Baker about getting on some of this coming. We didn't talk about Jennifer.
Yeah, we didn't. We were gonna see, I think she wanted to see what she would be interested in, so.
So.
So with regard to the planning
regards to-
commission,
Yes, Planning Commission.
I'll move that we appoint John, Sarah, and Sam.
Okay.
I'll second.
And any comments on that then? We have a motion to basically retain the existing membership of the Planning Commission. I do know they have some projects they're working on currently that are high on our priority list, and this group has been working them. And just getting started on a couple of them, actually. So I would be supportive of that.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, so all in favor of motion to keep the Planning Commission as it's currently structured with
Aye.
membership?
Aye.
Aye. Is that an aye, Victor? Yes?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's unanimous. We've got, we could take the 3 that are outliers and deal with those, and then we could do the remainder of them as,
I'm sorry.
as an open. We could take the 3 committees that are outliers that have decisions we have to make, and then we could approve the remaining slate, I think.
Yes, I think that's a good idea, yeah.
So, Design Advisory Committee, thoughts on that? We would need to designate one of the candidates to be an alternate.
And what's Jim's situation?
I didn't, is he on it currently? Because, oh, okay.
He is.
There,
Jim Pulver
Jim
is currently on
Pulver.
the.
okay.
The other 2 are the new applicants that we read the letters from the last time.
I do like that Galena came and spoke to us, so for me, that means a lot when they come in and talk, and I don't think Lillian came in.
I
Did
think
she?
Lillian was in a meeting.
Oh, okay.
There was someone here who
She was in
mentioned
a
that she
meeting.
was
I
in.
said that I thought she would be good, and I've heard from Natalie Peters that she thinks she would be good on design.
Which one are we talking about?
Lillian.
Lillian, okay.
Yeah.
And if we pulled her off of Parks and Rec, I like the fact that we've found a place for her. But,
I mean, the alternate, the difference, they still can attend every meeting. The difference is
Exactly.
just if someone doesn't show, that would be the only time they would have a
Right.
voting position.
so I'd be willing to make a motion to have Jim Pulver and Lillian Snow be the candidates and Galena as the alternate. Is that what we're talking about?
That's a scenario, yep.
That's a
Okay.
scenario.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Comments on that? Okay, so all in favor of Jim and Lillian being the primary and Galena being the alternate, signify by their approval by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And the other one was
Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec. I'm trying to find it.
Well, it's nobody.
It's nobody, we'd be removing that from,
okay.
we'd be removing Lillian Snow
Okay,
from the
that's it.
slate. So what we could do is
Approve
make a
everybody.
motion to approve the rest of the slate, but remove Lillian Snow as a candidate from Parks and Rec.
And do I have a second on that?
We're meeting this coming Tuesday, the Parks and Rec is meeting,
Okay.
so we'll probably try to find somebody to join, right?
Yeah, and we can keep warning it that
Sure.
it's back open again.
Okay.
I heard a motion. Can I get a second on it?
I'll second.
Okay. Any comments on any of the other candidacies? Okay, all in favor of approving the rest of the slate with the one amendment, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, I think we've handled that, Kathleen. Do you see anything we've missed?
No, that's it.
Okay, for that, we'll invite our bridge group forward to present the exciting new option 2.
Exciting. Well,
Right.
so thank you for having us back. Name is Wayne Simmons, just to remind everybody. Joel Perigo from V-Trans is joining me, and Aaron Guyette is overrunning the audio-visual. So what we came away from the last time we were here was concerns about the overall loss of parking on Main Street with the approach that we had, and we came away with a new piece of information, which is, it seemed like folks were okay with just having pedestrian access on Printer's Alley for the duration of the temporary bridge. So we went back, and Aaron, can you just zoom that up kind of to the center as much as we can? And we reoriented the temporary bridge so that it is essentially lined up with the existing center line and the existing traffic flow that's out there today. And you can kind of see the bridge there. It is the same width. It's got an 11-foot traveled way and 1-foot shoulders, two-way bridge on Main Street. And you can see that we have salvaged a number of parking spaces from the previous version. And Aaron, how many parking spaces did we gain with this? Do you remember? I should have memorized that. But anyway, we'll look that up. This still features the separate pedestrian bridge that's lined up with the existing sidewalk to the side, so it's separate. And the other thing that we've done is we've moved the water line off from the pedestrian bridge, which we were talking about, onto sort of a separate structure beside the pedestrian bridge. Moving the water line off the bridge allows us to do that work ahead of time, takes a lot of risk out of the demolition and the switchover for the water line. But it is going to require us to install 2 valves, so it'll be a short shutdown in that area of the system. And we've been coordinating with your Public Works, and we think that is something that we can do. So those valves will also facilitate putting the water line back on the new bridge once we get there. The other thing that you can see that we've shown in this is also there's a line of dots or circles there. Yes, thank you, Aaron. And those are piles that we need to install before we install a temporary bridge, and those are going to serve as supportive excavation for the main project. What we really want to do is leave the temporary bridges in place until we're ready to do the closure and actually install the bridge. So we really need to get those piles in under the new temporary bridge before we install it. And I'll talk about what that does to the timeline in a minute. So beyond that, Aaron, do you want to go to typical sections? So we now have developed what we call typical sections, which are kind of an end slice through the roadway that we're proposing, the approaches, and the bridge. And what's important to note is that on each approach, we're still talking about raising the pavement grade leading to the bridge approximately 2 feet. And what you'll see is that that's 2 feet at the roadway surface, but then we'll be paving aprons down to the existing curb line. And what's important there is that some of the parking spaces, as you get closer to the bridge, are actually going to be more pronounced in terms of their sloping to the curb. We think they're going to work fine. It's something that we're going to want to monitor maybe in the winter, because it could be somewhat problematic, trying to back out on that. But right now, we're sort of trying to do all that we can to maintain those parking spaces. And if they don't work, then we, potentially in the winter, we might have to preclude parking close to the bridge. So the other thing is, in the typical section, you can kind of just see a better view of what the end view of the bridge is going to look like. What else should I
don't know if you have the plans
Yeah.
on your screen there. Put it all together with the, the plan view, the profile view, and you can tell how far above the existing grade it's going to be, and then kind of get a sense for.
So Aaron, why don't you zoom in on that profile on the top there? So what you can see is the dashed line is the existing grade, and the dark line that is on top of it is the proposed grade. Now the scale is exaggerated vertically to show the difference there, but right at the bridge it's approximately 2 feet higher than what is existing there. And you can see that we're trying to put in a vertical curve there, so it isn't just a sharp kink when you get to the bridge, which is some of the information that we're showing there as well. Just go back to the layout if you could. So, and just zoom in near Printer's Alley. So again, it doesn't look like much near Printer's Alley because there's really nothing there, but we will be maintaining pedestrian access through the vast majority of the construction of the temporary bridges. There might be a day or two or a few hours here and there where it's not safe for pedestrians to use Printer's Alley, but for the most part, it should be open right through construction.
So overall, Main Street, looking at a loss of about 7 parking spaces. Most of those are in the vicinity of
7, that's a lot. Weren't we at like 30 or something?
I think we were in the high 20s,
High
yes.
20s?
Before, yeah.
Yeah.
Because
So we
everything,
gained back close to 20 spaces
Yes.
with this?
And before, it was just because it was so exaggerated to swing away from Printer's Alley, we were going over and wiping out parking spaces. And-
There's a loss of about 5 over on Merchants Row, so it's about 12 altogether.
Yeah.
the main loss on
Okay.
Main Street will be in front of the bank,
Mhm.
where that will go from about 5 spaces now down to 1. That's the primary area of parking loss.
Have you thought about providing spaces for like compact cars, having smaller parking spaces for compact so you can save some room?
I don't know that that's anything we specifically looked at, but, you know, there's an opportunity for us to fine-tune the parking right up until we actually put the lines down. So if that's something that you would like us to look at, you know, some different types of parking, then we could certainly do that and see how the effect is, you know, on the overall numbers of parking spaces.
I
But-
don't even know how much you'll save, between 30 spaces, right? You might get one more.
We may, and again, you know, like I said, really it's about how much space we're not occupying, and we can put lines down to address anything that
When you
folks
heard
might
the
think.
question on motorcycle, if you have small spots, but otherwise, I think we have a lot of pickups and stuff around here, so I'm not sure you want to constrict it all to compact car parking.
We just talked about this a little bit back at the office, and this potentially here could be a small car space, but the closer you get to the bridge, the steeper your slope is going to be down to the curb, and the less sight distance you're going to have. So it's not too big of a deal in this space, because you're looking back, but in this space over here, it becomes an issue for backing back out.
All right, get the blind post.
The more compact the car, the less, you're a lot lower down to the ground than you are in a pickup, so.
But, you know, maybe in front of the bank, there's another, wedge another small car space for motorcycles.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a quick overview of the Main Street, and before I really get into schedule and sort of project sequence, I'd like to just go over the Merchants Row plan, which is, actually, I think this would be a good thing, too. What we have here is typical sections of the pedestrian bridge up on top, and it's really been simplified. It's going to be steel beam stringers, a timber deck, and a timber railing. We haven't figured out the exact railing configuration. We've looked at chain link between the timber, but I think we may try to simplify that a little bit and just make it all out of timber. And if you want to just zoom down just a little bit to the water line.
I think just the one thing there from a maintenance perspective, we coordinated with Public Works folks and agreed that we wouldn't have the sidewalk plow go across the bridge, and that it would either be shovel or snow blower.
Okay, I was wondering with wood, so you already talked with them about that?
Yeah, there was concern over the deck, but more so from the railing perspective, something like that could receive some damage.
Bill thought that they would use the walk-behind snow blower for that.
Yeah, okay.
Briefly, don't chew up the timber.
And then, you know, just a really simple support for the water line. We're coordinating right now to pick materials for that. The contractor suggested something this week that we haven't had a chance to run by Public Works yet, but I think it could be a really good material, which is a continuously welded high-density polyethylene. So we will make sure that we get the right material in there, and it's really just a pretty simple support. So the Merchants Row plan is largely unchanged from what we presented last time. It's very similar. I think we've done a little bit of work optimizing the parking spaces and the exact alignment and location of the bridge. And, you know, it features two-way traffic on Merchants Row to the Battelle block. So it's important that traffic can go into the Battelle block beside the temporary bridge down their drive, and they can exit and go back out onto Main Street, but they can't exit to South Pleasant. And so otherwise, the majority of the traffic will be going from Main Street to South Pleasant as a one-way condition
That way, right?
toward South Pleasant.
Okay.
The only people to be exiting on Main Street are those leaving the Battelle block. And that's because it's a very difficult traffic movement to come out of the Battelle block, and you almost have to turn 270 degrees to get onto Merchants Row headed towards South Pleasant if you're leaving Battelle block.
So as you come up out of the Battelle block, you'll be here and you'll be next to the bridge, which will, remember Main Street, there's the grade that goes across. And so you'll be coming across, you'll have to go back out here, it'd be very difficult to come across. And then you turn against the grade, to go across towards South Pleasant.
Cars may be able to do it, but pickups and any kind of service truck that goes behind there, it certainly will be undoable. And
I think there was some discussion about, well, folks, you know, if there's room there, and there's a fair amount of room here, so a car could wait to find a gap if it's a heavy traffic across the other side. Well, some yield signs or.
so, at this time, South Pleasant is still two-way. So when they get to the Y, what we've shown here is the option to go either way. And there's discussion about South Pleasant traffic going to a one-way condition to accommodate Actor at some point. And at that time, we would just put up barriers, to just preclude that motion so that traffic won't get confused.
Where are you talking about that?
Well, I think we.
At the Y.
Oh, yeah, right. That would still be two-way to that point, right?
Well, this would be one way coming
Right.
up here, but we're allowing cars
To choose.
across
Okay.
to like Court Square,
Right,
across here.
So nobody's coming down.
because you're not supposed to take a right out of there.
Right. The barriers are to keep cars from coming down that way. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Yep.
Okay.
So this would be one way here, this would be one way.
Yeah.
Pulling towards South Pleasant.
Right.
And it becomes two-way,
So this remains two-way for now.
right, and down at the bottom is two-way.
Down here is two-way. But from the bridge to South Pleasant.
Access to the Battelle block is definitely the biggest design challenge for this location. And, the fact that it's one way and we're sort of pushing traffic out of that is what's making the access possible from the Battelle block with this configuration. So, what we do want to talk about a little bit is, and this came up at the stakeholders meeting the other day, is really large tractor trailers apparently right now park up on Merchants Row to offload food and other supplies to the Battelle block. And that's something that we need to accommodate. It's believed that they do not go behind the Battelle block now down the driveway because of the difficult turning movement and turning around. So we're working on some configurations, and we may try to find a spot where they could have some period during the day that would be exclusive offloading period so they could service the Battelle block. So that was something that came up. That was something we hadn't really thought about during the stakeholders meeting, but I think we have some ideas that we're working on that we can accommodate that. The other thing to note is that some of the largest emergency vehicles, like the ladder truck that the fire department has, when you run our design template for turning movements into the Battelle block, it's not going to be possible for them to just take one turn. It's probably going to make a turn, back up, and kind of realign with the Battelle block driveway. But we do believe that even the largest trucks can make that maneuver Just not like what we would do with normal traffic, where we wouldn't want, in a non-emergency case, a truck backing up and taking up all that room. But there does appear to be room to access that. And again, Aaron, if you go to the typical section, the drive or the area or the roadway leading to the Patel Block Drive is also going to be sloped. Okay, because again, that's in the area of the ramp, so it will be kind of feathered down. It'll be, from a profile standpoint, level, but you'll be kind of driving on a full bank section to go down and make that turn and come back out, on the order of 10%, which is, if you imagine on a roadway, like kind of the steepest banking that you would see on a roadway, that's comparable to a 10% bank.
Okay.
So, oh, yeah, I think that would be good to note, is that overall, we have the same width that we have for two-way traffic on Main Street, but we're going to use 6 feet of that for the pedestrian way, a couple of feet for the barrier, and what's remaining we're going to give to the one-way traffic. So we'll have wider shoulders on the Merchants Row, and we'll still kind of have that 11-foot lane. We just want to make sure that we don't give them too much space so people don't think that it's two-way and try to go the wrong way. There's a good area in there where you want people to understand that it is one way.
And that's where the bikes would go, in the shoulders.
Yes, yes. And that did come up in the stakeholders meeting about whether our proposed sidewalks would be safe for bicyclists. And we did tell them that really the shoulders and the traveled way are where the bike should be. But we will be designing the temporary sidewalks to the appropriate codes, so they should be as safe as any other sidewalk for bicyclists.
Okay, so as currently, people can choose what they feel safer on, but we are providing adequate shoulder space on Merchants Row for a cyclist.
Yes, so we'll have to be a wider space. Now, on Main Street, they're really going to have to be in traffic.
Right, which they currently are,
Yes.
the Sharrows, yeah.
So, the last thing that came up during the discussion at the stakeholders meeting was this idea of in lieu of a vehicle bridge, just replacing Merchants Row temporarily with a pedestrian bridge. And so we did look at that, and Aaron put together a sketch of what that could look like, and kind of with the idea of maximizing parking and the ability for pedestrians to go across. And I believe that we end up gaining 8 parking spaces. Aaron, is that what it is? Or I think it was 8 parking spaces over what exists now. So in this configuration, you would have pedestrian-only access, and net for the temporary bridges, you'd probably gain a couple of spaces. You know, I will say that in the stakeholders meeting, it was 50-50 at best about whether folks thought that was a good idea. Seemed like the businesses on Merchants Row were less enthusiastic about it than some of the other stakeholders. And really, we could go either way with this project. What I would just caution folks is that, you know, I'm just worried about buyer's remorse on a pedestrian bridge, because it would be difficult sell to a year from now say, we don't like the pedestrian bridge, we want to have a vehicle bridge. So, you know, there may be an opportunity to put the vehicle bridge in and test it for pedestrian only for a short period of time and see how that behaves, because many of the parking spaces could probably be salvaged if you did go to a pedestrian only type of configuration later on. but, you know, we're sort of approaching the time frame where we just need to make a decision. And to kind of lead into that, what I want to talk about a little bit about the time frame. So we worked with Jim, and we've looked at the master calendar, and we've talked to the contractor and the stakeholders, and it seems like the optimum schedule right now would be to try to have boots on the ground doing some of the water line work in preparation and those piles that I talked about in early June. Like, I mean, as early as we can in June, because that's probably 2 to 3 weeks worth of work, normal hours, not hitting the weekends, but just sort of normal hours. We think we can maintain traffic most of the time with shifts, but it will come at a cost of parking. Okay? It's possible to go to one-way traffic and maintain more parking, but right now we're thinking two-way traffic on Main Street, and basically the lane shift would come through one side of parking. So that's 2 to 3 weeks of work. Ideally, we're done the week before the 4th of July with that prep work, and we sort of have a very low profile in town for the 4th of July and the following week, which I think is Festival on the Green and some other stuff, and we come back on or around July 15th, and we start actually putting in the bridges. And the first weekend, like say Friday night after the train goes through, Kubricki mobilizes and they start demolishing Main Street Bridge. We do the demo over the weekend and as much work as we can during that train outage, Friday night, Saturday, and most of the day Sunday. Probably let a train go through Sunday evening, but we haven't decided whether that's necessary or not yet. And following that outage, that week, Kubricki will be there putting together the bridge and getting ready to launch it. The second weekend, Kubricki launches the temporary bridge and demolishes Merchants Row. So starting Friday night of the second weekend, both bridges would be closed to traffic. That weekend, we launch the one bridge, demo Merchants Row, and it will probably take 2 days following the launch of the bridge to get all of the paving tied in. And so maybe like Tuesday or Wednesday of that second week, Main Street reopens. So you'd be talking about 4, probably maybe 5 days with both bridges closed. And also that second week, Kubricki is putting together the second temporary bridge. So the third weekend, a second temporary bridge goes over, a couple of days of paving after that, and we're done. Maybe some line striping or final cleanup. So we'd be looking at a pretty intensive 16 to 18 days of construction going into the first week of August. So it's kind of hitting the two windows that seem like they're the best opportunity. Now, there are some times in there where Town Hall Theater has some things going on, and we're making note of those, and Kubricki is seemingly willing to work with notice to, maybe they would work half a day on Friday or some other configurations to try to accommodate as much as we can. But right now, our schedule is predicated on not a lot of night work except for those weekends when the trains are out and we have to get as much done as we can during those time frames. The rest of the work would be normal construction working hours, probably 7 in the morning till 5 or 6 in the evening.
The start date would actually be the weekend of the 22nd.
Okay, sorry, yep.
Yeah, I was getting ready to come to you because that wasn't tracking what we had talked about.
Well, I keep saying the 15th. That's my bad. The 22nd is that Friday, right?
Yeah.
Probably start like a few days before the 22nd, and that would be that weekend, the first closure, 22nd.
The last event on the green is the Lions Club auction on Wednesday, the 19th, and we've given them a clear. on that, and then after that, we've got that section of 2 or 3 weeks of time when the green is clear of events.
Okay.
The real challenge is that June 1st timeframe. We have a real heavy lift to get everything that we need ready for June 1st. I mean, that's kind of, at this point, a couple weeks earlier than we were talking about a month ago. But really looking at all of the challenges, you know, we really need to try to take advantage of that early June work so that we can miss some of the other things that are happening in July.
Questions?
I think I got it. So early work meaning the pilings are going in.
Right, and the water line relocation, you know, sort of.
That's June, and then
Right.
to be ready for July 22nd and starting the phasing of what we just described. And what's kind of our drop dead date for getting one way on South Pleasant, do you think?
So I think that, from my standpoint, that decision is completely separate from when we deploy the temporary bridges. But when I say that, I realize that I'm putting Actor in the middle of, you know, their challenge to get moved up onto South Pleasant and the early August timeframe where the traffic is going to impact, or the change in traffic condition is going to impact them.
Okay.
How long is the disruption for the water line when you switch the water lines?
So it's probably going to be a few hours at a time as we
It's
dig.
not a hole, okay.
Right, I mean, we basically have to dig a hole, locate the water line, you know, and install the valve. So we'll place the temporary water line so it's all ready to make the connection. Then we'll dig down, put the valve in, make that connection, and prep it for the permanent bridge construction, so we'll be ready when it's time to dig that up.
There's a couple different ways that could happen, a couple different sequences. That's one way. And the other way that the contractor could select to do it is go in, obviously you have to shut off the water line that's there, and there are not valves that are too close to the bridge, and so they need to be shut off back, or wherever the valve is. Install the valve, turn the water line back on. Once those valves are in, we can isolate just a piece over the bridge and still feed water to all the other connections.
And those valves go in pretty quickly. I mean, it's a couple hours if it's going well and you're good to go, so. Well, yeah. She said the key is going well, so, yeah. We've all been there when it hasn't gone well.
So was there any, what is the timeline on making a decision about the pedestrian-only bridge on Merchants Row? Like, when do we need, yesterday?
Now, yeah.
So, I mean, basically, this came up last week, and I told the team, do not stop on where we were headed with
Right.
this approach. Certainly, if the decision, you know, if you folks are really seriously considering that other option, I'd like to know as soon as possible. And, you know, I won't say that there's any, like, real drop dead, but what it does is it puts at jeopardy us getting the work done before the 4th of July. So right now, if I knew for certain by the end of the week which way you were going, that would be fantastic. Or if I knew for certain you weren't sure which way it's going to go by the end of the week, that would at least be helpful.
I mean, I think it came up during the first meeting that we had with staff, and it was intriguing enough to sort of then run by the stakeholders to see how they felt. The stakeholders, you know, accepted the regular version, but they were also very intrigued by the pedestrian situation. For myself, I mean, I think it's very tempting, but at the same time, we're losing our ability to move traffic across there. And I think that's one of the main reasons we're doing this project the way we are. So as we went through the process and the more we talked about it, the more I was like, it's not that tempting to me anymore. And we could always close the regular traffic line if we wanted to and make it pedestrian, but we can't go back.
That's what I think too, and I think we should keep it.
Because I think we could shut it down for an event or many events, but I worry that if we...
Could I ask, what are the main arguments for pedestrian only? You mentioned additional parking.
Yeah, I mean, when you want me to...
What other...
I think most, the things that, what surprised me was just how excited some of the stakeholders got about it. And I think for them...
Against it or for it?
For it.
For it.
I mean, for it. There was certain stakeholders who were not for it, and I want to speak for that. But the ones who were excited, I think their main excitement was the fact that it created parking lots for them.
But among the stakeholders who were for it, you mentioned that those owning businesses were not. Is that correct?
Well, it was a mixed bag, and
it seems to me that if we're going to take seriously this tempting alternative, that we ought to do so with clear reasons as to why it really does seem to make sense.
Right.
My own sense is I would prefer the original plan, but
right.
At least from everything I've heard right now. And something new always sounds intriguing, I fear. And I think unless you really figure out what it is substantially, that's what differences it's going to make that would be beneficial, it just seems to me that this is a big project, complex.
Well, we did.
Why make it more complex?
We did ask, and I think it's a mixed version again. I mean, Jim can talk about it, but again, I think you're right in the sense that, I think the reasons that businesses would want that aren't necessarily the same reasons for us where we're trying to move traffic around town, that we have to take a step back from. We're not the stakeholders. We have a larger picture we need to look at. So for them to create that sort of designated parking and in front of their store is very tempting, but that's not as tempting to me because I'm also trying to accomplish a lot of other things.
Well, but I think that, the reason, obviously our concern is that as a commercial viable area, we want it to remain as much as possible through that, through the whole project. And I guess that if I saw a really compelling argument as to why this would sustain commerce in a more effective way than having the roadway, then I would say yes, indeed. I mean, that's because obviously we want traffic to move and all of that, but we're talking about a central commercial district, and we want to keep it alive during this. And it seems to me that the process that does that the best should be the one that we would favor. Obviously, to the point where it doesn't become such a monstrous engineering task that. But I.
So the only other benefit that was briefly discussed during the stakeholders meeting was the simplification that it does of putting in the temporary bridge. And again, I'm not selling it on that point because, we should respond to your needs, but it is a quicker deal to just take a crane and swing in a pedestrian bridge and build little ramps. So that 16 to 18 day time frame that I talked about we could potentially probably shorten that by at least 4 days, if that was really a driving thing. But again, I don't get the sense that the stakeholders were that driven by that benefit. They just were asking questions about
Right.
how it simplified the project.
Right.
I think that it's premature to, I think we need to make a decision tonight, because they need guidance. And I
Right.
think that was a fascinating idea, but that's all I think it is because especially some of the business stakeholders are fearful that it then takes them off the beaten path. They're by a parking lot, not by a main thoroughfare. And I have not heard the compelling argument to support that. And so I think that it's prudent for us to continue with a plan that has been in the public's eye and has had an opportunity to have the scrutiny of the public. This is a new plan that did come up as an option at the stakeholder meeting, but has not been in the public. And there's, I'm sure, second and third order effects that we are not seeing right now, and that we could not turn back once we've done it. And so this is a 3-year decision, and I think we have a workable solution, and we should go forward with it.
Yeah. I don't think we've asked everybody who normally drives through town what they think, and I think they would probably want to continue being able to drive through town in several different ways. And if something does go wrong, I would hate for us to cut off one of our egresses if we don't have to, you know?
Yeah. As popular as, and as important as the parking, and maybe this was really seen as, hey, this is great because we get more parking, but I think we can work harder to solve the parking issue other than to cut off a bridge that is a main thoroughfare.
No, I would agree with you.
Not only that, if eventually we did want to make Merchants Row a pedestrian only, we would want maximum paved space for park space if we wanted that at some point in the future.
We could do it with the bridges that, you know.
Yes.
With the bridge in.
To me, that we're
But you can't go
really,
backwards.
this is a win-win situation.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
We can experiment and see how we like it,
Yeah.
but I think we get the bridge in. Chief?
If I could just weigh in just for really quick. I explained this to the fellows there at the meeting the other day. These two crosswalks are the two most dangerous crosswalks in town. We've had 2 fatalities and a number of pedestrian accidents, and this one as well as this one here. And what makes them dangerous is the site obstruction by the Patel building and the conflict of traffic coming out of Merchants Row. I'm just hoping in the long term we can make Merchants Row one way going the other way, which means keeping the bridge for movement now, so we're not encouraging people to drive out into that crosswalk. There's a lot of reasons it's a dangerous crosswalk. So we had the fatality a few years ago. We had one a few years before that. And it's just, there's no way to fix this crosswalk to make it safer. No matter what you put the flashing lights, you can do whatever you want. You've just got a site obstruction, a major one, and you've got turning conflicts driving into an area where people are trying to cross the street. They can't see each other. Not because of the site obstruction, but because there just isn't enough time to make good decisions on pulling out or crossing the street. And I'm all for keeping this bridge here just to keep traffic flowing out and moving out.
Yeah.
So,
Chief, question on your, would a right turn only for the ones exiting Battelle and coming onto Main Street, would that solve your safety concern?
It would, if you could enforce it. I suspect people are going to try to take that left turn anyway, but it would reduce it anyway. And anytime we can reduce, it's that left turn conflict more than the right turn conflict. That is the problem.
Yep.
This turn here, what happens is they can't see cars coming this way. They start to edge out. The pedestrian is walking down the sidewalk. This guy coming this way decides he's going to stop for the pedestrian. He thinks he's stopping for him. He jets out, and there's a pedestrian starting to cross the street. There we have the conflict. We had a number of these accidents with a couple of fatalities. So any way we can reduce that, that's really the only fix for this crosswalk. And it has got nothing to do with the bridge project, but I look at the bridge project as an opportunity to fix the one crosswalk we have.
Might be a chance to experiment with that, too.
Yes, sure.
I just wanted to point out too that the volume of traffic
I was going to say,
exiting there is
it's
going
going
to
to
be
be
substantially
greatly
smaller because it's only people coming out of the Patel block or exiting from the parking spaces as opposed to, you know, the regular flow we have now in town down Merchants Row.
Right.
So maybe that will help.
And that's, I mean, for me, we're already narrowing that amount of traffic moving through there because they can only go one way. So it is sort of halfway to that pedestrian area anyway. So I think it's an interesting idea that maybe we should play with the no left turn there and see what happens.
No left turn, right.
Because,
I like that.
yeah,
It's not a street that serves any circulation purpose anymore with the cross street bridge.
right.
You know, we gotta, putting all these conflicts onto the main drag creates a lot of problems. The cross street bridge took 6,000 to 7,000 cars a day out of that intersection, which we still have the accidents, we're still having the near misses. So if we can just get cars from stopping them from taking that left turn there and being handicapped by that major site obstruction, I think it'll just make it safer.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of delivery that would be coming in there, so if they're coming in that direction and they're looping out, is there any reason they would want to go left again, versus
Well, there's this.
right
this
and all the way
Sysco
around?
trucks and some of the food delivery trucks that are servicing Two Brothers and are also servicing.
But wouldn't they have already come from there, because that's the way the flow is going to direct them? Because they're not going to be able to come the other way. So I think that they'd already be done with servicing.
It's a learning curve for them.
Yeah, they'll figure it out of where to go first. First time, no. But they'll go around and back over the bridge and come back.
I've watched traffic, people coming south on Route 7 instead of going over the cross street bridge, they'll turn down Merchants Row and then go out, and which before the cross street bridge was there, that was a standard way, but it shouldn't be available anymore.
So I get a sense that both the stakeholders and the select board are supporting option 2. What's the pleasure of the board? Can we have a motion maybe to support this option so they can continue with planning and hit the timelines that they need to hit? Or are you not ready yet?
I'm ready. I would move that.
Yeah,
Okay,
I would second that.
moving second. Any last comments? All in favor of supporting
Should we
option?
add what they-
We're supporting,
Right.
we're supporting the vehicle one-way access.
Yes.
Right.
Just want to be
Well,
clear.
as well as the Main Street relocated center
Okay.
center line bridge.
Okay, so we're approving what's been presented tonight.
Tonight.
Okay.
Do we want to
which is-
also do the no left-hand turn?
I don't know, can we do that?
You can
Is
make
it-
temporary traffic controls.
Okay.
They're good for 90 days, and then
Maybe we should-
They're a project.
Just different motion.
Make a different motion on
Okay.
that.
And maybe deal with that later once the bridges are in.
Well, can you put that into your
So we can
sign?
certainly put signs
Wait
in
for-
there, but, you just have to do the ordinance or whatever it is that, changes that. We can't change the flow as part of the project. So if you tell us that you've done that.
Okay.
And you'll do the
we'll put
signage
whatever
for us?
signs.
We could do that at our next meeting? Okay.
Yeah, if it's a temporary thing and we have to do it every 90 days, then isn't that the way it has to work?
Well, the 90 days allows you to put something in place in lieu of going through the ordinance process, but it's going to be like this for 3 years
I think we changed the
or
ordinance.
more. It's going to be here for quite a while. I would suggest, as we get close to the project, then just do the temporary 90-day change, and then that process start the ordinance change.
Yeah. So I don't think we have to necessarily do that as part of
Not tonight.
this motion tonight.
To add a sign, even in July or August, is not going to be the hardest thing. Because basically that's all it's going to be is some signage. That's easy to be nimble with. So, take your time and just tell us, what you decide, and we can go with that.
Okay.
So then the motion is to approve the Main Street configuration with pedestrian access only to Printer's Alley and one-way vehicular access on Merchants Road.
Correct.
Okay.
Moved and seconded.
Yep.
Okay. No other comments? All in favor signify by saying an aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay. So we expect by August when that we will have the bridges in?
Yeah, 5th, right? I don't want to misspeak.
Yeah, first week
I
of
already
August.
confused you with time frames already, so,
Yeah.
thank you, and, we will be sending final plans very quickly. They shouldn't look much different than this, but they'll have more information that the contractor needs. And, if you have any further thoughts on ideas about how you want to stripe some of the parking spaces or what you want us to look at, we can certainly do that. Again, painting lines is easy. Right now, I just need to know where the bridges are going to be and what size they're going to be, so.
I do have one request. Since it's going to be here for 3 years, is it going to get a nice paint job before it comes? Or it'd be nice not to have a rusty bridge in the center of our downtown?
It will be galvanized.
Perfect.
So it'll probably be, galvanizing is kind of really shiny when it first shows up.
Yeah.
This will kind of have aged a little bit, so it'll kind of look,
Doesn't rust, though.
There was one on
I hope
116,
not.
right? On 116 in Bristol, the bridge that was
Yes.
there for a few years, same thing, right?
way more than a few years.
Yeah.
But yeah.
15
You're-
years.
Very
You're
kind
being
of
very
you.
kind. Thank you. But yes, it'll look very similar to that, yes. So,
Okay.
all right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I think we got Chief next.
Well, were we going to talk about
What?
a couple other things related to the bridge, or should we come back to that?
Yeah, let's, thank you. See, that's why you sit right
That's
there.
why I am.
Okay,
See, you said it was about an hour in, right?
yeah.
Well, I can just note that on the actor front, since that was brought up tonight, that the representatives of the town and actor will meet early next week to hammer out a game plan for the kind of temporary relocation of actor before the South Pleasant Street hub is ready for use. So, I think hopefully then during that meeting next week, we'll have a game plan that we can come back to the select board with, timing, events, the whole thing.
Perfect.
So that's an important piece of this, obviously, so we'll align that with it, so. Okay.
How about the update on the environmental assessment in the meeting?
Tomorrow, the environmental assessment is being printed as we speak. It will be hand-delivered tomorrow morning to both the town offices as well as the library. It'll be available online. I'll make sure you all have that URL, but it's basically the project website that VTrans is maintaining. The environmental assessment will be there. And then May 11th, as we've talked about before, there will be a public meeting in which the team will come down and present the results of the environmental assessment. They've broken it into two halves. There'll be an information session from 4 to 6 in the afternoon at Town Hall Theater, and that's for an opportunity for citizens to meet informally, one-on-one, with representatives of the team to talk about the project, learn more about the project, and then a formal presentation from 7 to 9 that evening, which will include Q&A as well. Having read the entire EA document, it's not bedside reading necessarily. It's a 200-page document, but it's very thorough. I think there are 18 areas of environmental consequence that the document looks at, from air quality, historic resources, groundwater quality, noise and vibration. All of the environmental consequences of the project are very thoroughly and carefully analyzed. So that's kind of the gist of the EA.
So you had the question about, do you see select board members needing to be at the 4 to 6 informational meeting, or not? That's more for the community?
It's for the community and for you if you want to, if you have specific questions that you want to ask, particularly since you and Heather will be working the mics during the Q&A session. So this will be your opportunity to stop in with questions that you might have. But I think the main event will be that, that 7 to 9 formal presentation. So, okay, any other questions about that?
Any other questions, Jim? So the other thing that's in your packet in regards to the bridge is a copy of our motion to dismiss the claim that Attorney Langrock had filed to, regarding the town's responsibility to replace the downtown bridges, so I don't remember if everybody had seen that, and so there's a copy of that in the packet.
I was also going to mention that there's also in our packet a response that Jim made regarding the bypass idea, so that if people who are watching tonight
point.
are curious about, the details about why not a bypass, you can refer to that. And I think it does a very good job of summarizing again what it's not simple. You're crossing roads, a lot of roads, and with rail, and that's just one major detail that would have to be considered and negotiated with a bypass project.
I've walked a couple people through that too, of, that was an option that was looked at several years ago, but significantly more money, not really qualifying for aid monies and federal monies and things like that. So I don't know if other board members have had those questions too, but it was pretty easy based on certainly what you put together, but also a letter that went out at the time back in 2015 from Sue Minter. There was a letter sort of explaining all that kind of stuff. So, I know we had looked at Ben Wilson's letter in the newspaper, and it was just the same sort of things from years ago. So, people are welcome to look at those things. I sort of had looked at them at the time, but have moved on to knowing that wasn't a good option. So I don't know if you had it too.
Well, my main concern was the bold new plan that was suggested a bypass that doesn't go out of town. I mean, the proposed easterly bypass would run the railroad through what it seems to me, a major residential district. You're not going to have high-speed trains going around Painter Hills, or through Painter Hills, practically. I mean, this is an area that I think where there is perhaps future development as far as residential development, and it just seems to me that anyone who would propose a bypass out of town and propose that route simply doesn't know the perimeter of the town. And and you're right. I mean, we talked about a Route 7 bypass going in that direction and so on. The other is, of course, yes, it would be very nice to have an abandoned rail bed given to us for whatever use we have, but the tracks would have to be removed, it would have to be paved. I mean, you're talking about enormous costs. This is an unrealistic proposal, it seems to me. And at any rate, I see it as old news.
Right.
Yep. I think one of the things in Sue's letter that struck me, it said that those kind of bypass projects are rarely undertaken in all but the most congested rail corridors in the country. And I don't think we really qualify for that as much as we'd like to think that we are. We are not. And I think of the entire letter that she wrote, that's what stuck out the most to me, is that we're not really even on the radar.
Right.
So.
That said, there is definitely a future for a bike path project, and we know that, and we are hopefully working on that.
We're working on that, yeah.
Always working on that.
Okay. So thank you, Jim.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Jim.
it. Chief.
Uh-oh. Smack you too.
Every May 1st, we're required to submit an updated local emergency operations plan to the state. If we don't have it, we risk not getting disaster recovery funds, things like that. The plan has to be adopted by the Selectboard, which is why I'm here. For you, this is fairly new. This has been the last few years. So I take care of the plan. It's very simple. They came out with this format some years ago to make sure encourage every town to at least have something in place. It's really nothing more than a contact list. Who's in charge of what number do you call, where's your shelter located, some of the very basic things. We actually have a more comprehensive plan that we operate with, which has actual operational plans and things like that we update. But this is the simple version, the one that we're required to have. And so I bring it to you tonight to really adopt. It's really kind of pro forma. It's almost exactly the same as last year, only the phone numbers have been changed to reflect other people's phone numbers and things. As far as the shelter goes, I'm going to be at a presentation tomorrow night with the Red Cross trying to untangle this mess of shelters. Red Cross used to set up the shelter in the old gym. They don't do that stuff anymore. They've only got 4 designated shelters in the state, and none of them are here. So, and they also don't provide support for shelters. So if we needed a situation where we had to have a shelter, we're kind of on our own. Anyway, they're going to come and explain this whole shelter business to us tomorrow and get an update on it, and we'll know better. That's reflected in the plan, the shelter, and who do we contact and how do we operate it. Okay, so the only thing that really needs to be done, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. It's about as simple a form as you can get.
Okay.
So that said, just to clarify, our 3 shelters that we've designated in the plan are the police station, which is a transient shelter, and then if we need larger accommodations, it would be our new rec center or the American Legion.
With the police department, we can't really house anybody there, but our experience with shelter is we open them up and we bring in food and we bring in all kinds of things, and 3 people show up for 2 or 3 hours and find other places to go. So we figured, before we get into that, if we can just get them in the community room at the police station, keep them warm, keep them out of the weather, give them a television to watch, and they can make whatever arrangements they want. If it looks like we're going to actually have to lodge them or house them, that gives us plenty of time to prepare, get who we need, be able to open up the gym or the Legion, whichever one is the most appropriate at the time, and take care of that without being in a rush.
Okay. Pleasure of the board.
I'll move that we adopt the Town of Middlebury Emergency Operations Plan.
Okay.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Comments? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you, Chief. Susan.
Ta-da!
Infrastructure Committee update.
We have a bunch of things from infrastructure. First up is we are partnering with the college to do some upgrades on Hillcrest Road. The town's portion has already been set aside in our capital improvement budget for $36,900. And we would be taking care of some stormwater issues and the paving, and the college is going to take care of some water system upgrades and some fire suppression upgrades as well. And it works really well for us. So
That's the stuff that we were talking about when we did the site visit?
Yeah.
A year ago, maybe?
Yeah, when they were taking over the new building. So, so the college is excited to, I don't say they're excited to pay for this, but they are looking to, it really helps improve their water system, so it works out well for everybody.
Okay.
I don't know if there's any
I have a
questions.
motion for the board?
Love to do that. Did you have a question first? No. Oh, okay, you made a move. So.
He's got a move.
He's got the moves. Go, you want to do it? Go ahead.
I would move, I don't know.
It says, motion would be to support the Infrastructure Committee's recommendation that the town partner with the college on infrastructure upgrades on Hillcrest Road, with the town's portion to be funded by $36,900 earmarked for the project in the FY18 capital budget. Whew.
I'll second.
Okay.
I'll let you do the next one, okay?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay.
So the next one, we were recommending an agreement with Aldrich and Elliott to conduct the wet weather overflow evaluation at the Weybridge Pump Station number 3 and 9. And the scope of work we looked at is to provide engineering services for flow monitoring, and ultimately the development of recommendations for preventing future overflows at pump stations number 3 and pump station number 9. These were identified as the priority locations with our review. So I'm not sure if people had questions with that. It's very exciting stuff.
That doesn't seem new either. Did we talk about that when we did the tour of facilities last year?
Yes,
Did they-
this is a known problem area, and this is where we had the overflow issue
That's-
recently.
yeah.
So
Okay.
this is the area
I'm
that keeps
tracking.
getting talked about, and so we're hoping to move forward with getting the engineering for it.
Okay.
You want to do it? Go for it.
I would like to make a motion to accept the infrastructure committee's recommendation to approve amendment number 1 to September 14, 2016, agreement with Aldrich and Elliott to conduct a wet weather overflow evaluation at Weybridge Pump Station number 3 and 9 at a cost not to exceed $31,000.
Second.
All right.
Moved and seconded. Questions?
So when I do the review of the check warrants, I study the electric bills, and I noticed that the electric for some of the pump stations are really high. And is it related to this, do you think? Or,
Well, I know when we have wet weather events, those pumps
are working
are
hard?
working really hard, so it wouldn't surprise me. I don't know for sure. We could probably find out,
So
but
like the Springside Reservoir pump, does that have a number? Because it doesn't have a number in the electric bill, but like that one's like way up, you know,
All
the
the-
electric.
That's a water pump.
right.
So
The,
that's different.
Springside
water
water
pumps-
is a water pump for water
they use a
supply.
lot of power, an incredible amount. The water pumps use an incredible
I
amount.
know, but what would explain a real significant spike compared to last year? Because you can see the comparison
Oh, compared to
the
last year.
previous year.
Well, if there's, like, when they had the overflow situation, what happened is that the pumps couldn't keep up, so they were probably working constantly, and then it couldn't keep up with the amount of water that was going into there. But if you're talking about water, we might be using more water, so that would be, or that pump in particular is pumping more water. It depends on which ones they're
I was
using.
just, I don't know if you want to see that, or public, or Bill wants to see these electric bills, just to see if it's an indication of equipment problem or something. So I just wanted to note it while
It's a
I.
good
It's a
point. I
good
think
point.
that's for Kathleen, can ask Bill.
Yeah, take it to them and
Next-
sort of.
next-
There's
Two.
also the possibility if we had, duplication in the water pumping system, and if one pump was down and another pump was pumping all of the water, we might see a spike in one. And
Yeah.
but it is certainly something.
I
that-
think it would be good, Kathleen, if Bill just a standard procedure studied the electric bill, so much of it really is his department, so he could look for those patterns the way I'm seeing some of them.
Does he
Things-
not see them, though?
I don't think he really gets to see them on a regular
Really?
basis, so that would be good.
I mean, just to tell you what we would see is different fluctuations depending on people filling their pools seasonally. If there was a lot of
This
fires.
is though January to now that
But
I'm
if-
seeing that.
If there's a lot of fires that
No
they.
fires.
Right, so I don't know.
That's why I'm
Well,
curious.
But-
Why don't we just,
Why don't we leave it
ask?
to them? Again, it could be if they weren't using some pumps and were using that one instead. But yeah, let's find out.
So I have a motion and a second.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
So then, the next thing we have is the well monitoring project. This is some new work that's going to get done for the state requirements for the construction of chlorine and fluoride monitoring. We have requirements that the monitoring is done in a different way, so these take the project from the bid phase through to completion, and a total cost of $29,300. I thought that was a not-to-exceed one. Wasn't that a not-to-exceed one?
The last one was a not to
That was the $31,000.
But I
was-
think this one was too because it had some that were
Yes,
standard.
you're right.
And so it is we have to,
Well, some of them were lump sum. and
but there
some
was
of
the
them-
one that was not to exceed. So when we do the motion, so let me do that one. Make a motion to accept the Infrastructure Committee's recommendation to approve Amendment Number 2 to the January 13th, 2016 agreement with Aldrich and Elliott for well monitoring site bids and construction phase services at a not to exceed $29,300.
Second.
I don't see not to exceed on there.
It was,
It was
Susan
discussed
had
in the committee.
it was discussed, I remember it, when that's why I'm pointed out.
There's one item here that says $12,500, that's not to exceed.
Right.
That's the resident project representative.
So that section put with the others that are standard, then it has to go to a not to exceed.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
And then the last one is the Halpin Road project. And one of the tasks that we had given Dan was to try, because Halpin Road would have to be closed for a while, was to try and minimize the closure as much as possible. And so his proposal was to have the town purchase the aluminum culvert pipe and have the company contact build it on-site with the general contractor, and that will reduce the amount of time the road would need to be closed because they can do that very quickly and then put it in place. But that would require the town to buy that directly, and so this is authorizing Kathleen to do the purchase order for that large amount.
So, you're okay with that?
Yeah. Because it would have to be done anyway,
Okay.
but this speeds it up, the process.
It's not an additional expense?
No,
to do this.
it's
Okay.
just
Actually,
speeding.
it might be some savings.
Right.
Okay.
So so instead of the contractor taking care of all that and on their time frame, it's on our time frame and our dime. So we have more control over the timing of it.
Okay.
So-
I was going to ask the same
Yeah,
question.
so,
It also, the maker of the product will put it together while the contractor is prepping, and we're not waiting for the contractor to do both things.
Sounds great.
right, so the contractor's doing all that stuff, we're off doing our thing.
Okay.
Well, I'll move that we support the Infrastructure Committee's rec to authorize our town manager to sign a purchase order for $62,900 for the purchase and installation of an aluminum culvert pipe
Second.
And head walls.
and head walls
From-
from Contech Engineered Solutions.
Thank you.
I'll second. Oh, let Victor
Too
have it.
late.
Any other questions? All in favor? Aye.
I
Opposed? Okay.
Oh, and so the last thing is the Agrimart's agreement for the sewer use agreement. We are negotiating with them, and so what we're looking to do is to, oh God, I'm going to get this wordage incorrect. Because the expiration of the 20-year agreement is in April 9th, we're recommending an extension of the current agreement until June 30th, so we have some time to negotiate. Is there something else I feel like I'm leaving something out on that one, but maybe not.
I'll make a motion to support the Infrastructure Committee's recommendation to extend the current sewer use agreement with Agrimark until June 30th, 17, while a successor agreement is negotiated.
I'll second.
Okay, and we really needed to do it because we're already beyond the
Right.
current one. So, yeah, I'll just point that out.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Are there any questions? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Wow.
See?
Infrastructure Committee was busy with it, weren't you?
Getting it done.
Getting it done. Okay,
Time of
so
year.
Next is, Kathleen, you want to just walk us, do you know this earth waste salvage yard permit situation?
Periodically, the salvage yards have to come back to the select board for an extension of their permit. This is required by the state, who does all of the permitting, but just to check with the town to make sure that they're operating in compliance with our bylaws and such. They require a sign off from the select board every 5 years.
Okay.
So it's the same as they did 5 years ago? Standard.
And you're not aware of any issues or infractions? Okay, so pleasure of the board.
So I'll make the motion to approve the application for certificate of approved location for earth waste and metal for the operation of its salvage yard at 4079 South Route 7, and authorize Town Manager Kathleen Ramsey to execute the appropriate approved documents once identified, which I really like this one.
Well, in years past, the state had provided a nice signature page for the select board, and that was not available because the person at the state was on vacation. So,
okay,
see if they still have that form or a simple email.
So I'll second.
Moving second. Any comments? All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Next is Town College lunch. I'll just bring you up to date. On April 17th, so last Monday, myself, Susan, Nick Artem, and Kathleen joined Lori Patton, president of the college, Dave Donahue, the special assistant to the president, and executive vice president for finance and administration, David Provost. For lunch, we talked about public safety, and in regards to public safety, it was specifically the more collaborative approach that has been recently initiated with the police department and college public safety working together, communicating well. It seems to be going really well, both sides, both chief and the college feel that it's that it's working really well. And Nick also talked about the town's commitment and purchase of the new ladder truck. And part of that conversation, the college president, Lori Patton, asked if we could perhaps lay out the potential usage of the ladder truck and what percentage of the buildings, for instance, the college might have that the ladder truck would be used on. So as they look at their needs, they have an indication how the town sees that. We talked about the Main Street and Merchants Row bridges, brought the college up to date on the movement on the temporary bridges. At the time, we didn't have the second option yet, but we knew it was coming. And we invited the college to be a part of the stakeholder meeting that Susan chaired. We talked about, Susan provided, that's about as far as we got for the most part. The time, we squandered some time maybe, but we had good discussion, and it was really a lot of discussion about the collaborative work on safety and making sure that we're working together. And so Susan did a nice job of laying out all of the upcoming infrastructure projects in an executive summary and left that with the college. And we talked about the economic development project, and ironically, their new vice president for finance and administration had recent experience in that area with Champlain College, when he was working for Champlain College, working with the city of Burlington collaboratively as a tenant college. He was also giving the was it Business Person of the Year award, or recently awarded for that work that he had done. So I think he's a great new resource for us here in the town.
He was going to check to see and sort of follow what the task force has been doing. So.
And one of the things that they had addressed was high-speed internet, right?
Yeah.
So,
yep.
So which is something that is on our desires list. Given that we didn't get through everything, we decided we would try to meet in June. So just 2 months as opposed to our normal 3 months, because there's some things that are timely and important to keep them in the loop on. Any questions? Okay. So that was just informational. There's no action. So is this 3-4-50 pledge something that you would like to do, Laura? Is that something that came out of your committee?
It was brought to our Public Health and Safety Committee as recommended that we get behind this, and it's a wonderful initiative. It just says basically that we're behind what we're already doing, which is keeping people active and healthy. So this came from our health officer, Tom Scanlon. So there's a handout, and according to that, it asks us to support the reality of 3 health behaviors, meaning when we have no physical activity, a poor diet, and tobacco use, we have 4 chronic diseases that spike: cancer, heart disease, stroke, and type 2 diabetes and lung disease. So if we can keep more people active, we can do a better job of reducing those diseases. So we would like you to support that initiative. So I'd like to move that, if that's okay.
Timing's good. Isn't tomorrow the walk at lunch day or something? National walk during your lunch day, or I don't know.
There's going to be a number of initiatives. Yeah, there's a national walk during lunch day.
Yeah.
This week. And then next week, we have our first Wednesday of the month walk and roll to school day. And then we also have a bike swap event on Green Up Day, which I've mentioned before, so that people have an opportunity to get bicycles and get moving on bicycles. And then we have the Kelly Bow Memorial Bike Ride on Monday. So there's a lot of bike and ped activity in May. And
good. I was going to get people active.
Yes.
So, would you like to make the motion then?
I move that we sign the Vermont Department of Health 3-4-50 pledge in support of a statewide effort to support a healthy and thriving Vermont.
Oh, sorry. I'm like totally zooming out.
Moved and seconded by Farhad. So, all in favor of supporting the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. And that takes us to Kathleen, Town Manager Report.
Briefly, you have in your packet the General Fund, Water Fund, Sewer Fund, and Equipment Fund budget reports. As you may recall, the last time we talked about the General Fund, we were watching closely the highway overtime for the winter, and we ended up about $7,000 under budget for that. So we should be on target for the end of the year in the highway department, and other funds likewise are on target. You'll see that overall expenditures are up slightly from last year at this time, but that is because the timing of some debt service payments. We have some heavy interest payments that we make the second half of the year, and that they were made earlier this year than last.
Okay.
And the other funds are on track as well. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, the debt service that we were paying earlier, is there a reason why we paid it earlier, or that just?
It's probably just hit the account sooner. I don't think there's any reason particularly.
I mean, we'd have to pay them one way or the other. That's what your point is, yeah. Just curious.
Approval of check warrants.
Okay, yes, I've reviewed the check warrants, and I think they're in order. As I mentioned, I do review for some trends, especially in the electric bill, so I do think it would be good for department heads to have a chance to review them for any trends that they might see. Another thing I wanted to note, Kathleen, related to that is that, like, for example, the Seymour Street lights at the underpass had gone way down, which might indicate that maybe the lights are out, because it doesn't seem to make sense that it would be way down. So that's what I'm indicating as an example of how those bills could be useful for department heads to review. Okay, so anyway, the total expenditures for the period were $401,005.69. So I move that we approve the check warrants.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Now, town manager's report.
First, we have just putting a suggestion out there that if anybody is interested in a Town of Middlebury email address, you're happy to provide them, given the sensitivity people have with using private email servers. So anybody that's interested in having a town email address, please let me know. If you would like to discuss the pros and cons of that, I'm happy to do that offline as well. Next, I'm going to be visiting colleges with my daughter Turner later this week. And with your permission, I would like to appoint Acting Town Manager Chris English, and Assistant Town Manager Chris English as the Acting Town Manager in my absence.
Do you need a motion on that?
That'd be good, thanks.
I thought we didn't, I thought we were letting you do it now.
Okay, either way, but I do have to run it by the board. I do have to make
Yeah, because I was,
We used to do a motion, but I didn't remember us doing that recently.
yeah.
Right, you're right, Susan, we have changed that.
But I think that
Making
you're
Catherine
perfectly capable of delegating that authority, letting us know that you're out of the area.
Thanks for telling me, but.
And then one thing that is not on the agenda is an idea I've discussed with Brian and Susan about moving up the strategic planning session from July to May or June to take care of, to make our priorities earlier in the year and get working on them sooner.
Okay, do you have a date?
There was two dates that we,
I was thinking perhaps during one of your off meeting weeks, either the week of the 15th of May or the 5th or 6th of June.
Well, either of those is fine.
I can't do the 5th of June.
So May.
The week of the 5th of June. I
Oh.
didn't get any particular date recommended, so if there's any day during those weeks that work better for you, that would be good to know. So if you're generally open to the concept, I could send out a doodle poll.
Okay.
why don't we do that?
I
That
think we
sounds
talked
good.
about this last meeting also, right?
We talked about doing it in July,
Yeah.
and
Oh, okay.
kind of fell down on the scheduling.
Yeah, we got really close and then it all fell apart.
So we do have economic health task force the Mondays of those weeks. So Mondays are out.
Well, she was talking about doing it on the Tuesday.
Tuesday's always a good day, just because we're in a habit of
Okay.
going on Tuesday.
I mean, Nick would be the one that we need to check with, because he's the one that usually travels in those alternate.
Are we looking in May or June?
May or June.
Okay.
So you want to talk about
The only
Tuesday
2
the
days,
16th?
the only 2 days I won't be available is 10th and 11th. I'm in Toronto.
So what days, if we did it
So
on
Tuesday, the 16th works
Yep,
That's
of Tuesday?
of
May.
May.
May
16th of
16th,
May is Monday.
Tuesday, May 16th.
16th is Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Or what would the June date be?
5th, you said?
Or it would be June
June 6th?
6th, that's okay too.
I
Yeah,
can
that's
make
fine.
both
Yep.
days.
Yeah, both of
Both
those
of
days
those
work for
work.
me.
So we'll check with Nick.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we were going to do a facilities tour too. Should we pick a date, like maybe?
Well, there were just a few of you that
I
were.
think there was-
Yeah, there's just a couple of us. That's right.
Touch base with the
Totally forgot.
the
Okay.
infrastructure committee.
I just lost my own grip with that, so.
Okay, and that's it for me.
Okay. Board member concerns. Laura?
I was wondering about the downtown flags on Cross Street Bridge and what the protocol is for changing their rotation.
Beth handles that.
Beth handles that? So just make a request to her to change them?
Well, we have a schedule for the summer, and these are going to be changed out very soon. But if you had a request for a new use or new banners,
Well, I just wondered what the protocol was for changing from winter to spring, because we have a winter-themed flag still out, and we're in spring. So I thought maybe we should put the colored flags out sooner than we are currently doing, so I wanted to ask about that.
you just
I didn't know
contact
who,
us.
I didn't know whose decision
Just
that was.
contact us.
So I was just curious
We
about
generally
that.
take care of that.
Because I feel like, well, we're in spring, we're not in winter anymore. But you said soon, so I don't know if there's a way to regulate that going forward, so that maybe by the 1st of April, you're changing the flags, kind of thing, unless there's a request for a special flag that somebody's paid for,
I don't know.
so.
Now, I know when my wife says I'm oblivious, I hadn't even noticed.
I didn't notice either.
I do, well, and you know, in flowers, and people do look when they
Yeah,
come
they
into
do.
the town, it sets a
Yeah.
tone
They
for the
do.
town, you know, like that
Yep.
you've spruced up for the change of season, so I like seeing the pansies and the flowers starting to emerge, and
Yeah.
and so I just had that general question. I also wanted to note that the ham supper is coming up for the fire department on May 2nd at the Waybury Inn. It's a traditional supper, and it's an opportunity for us to thank our fire department and for them to thank us for their support. And I don't know if you had a chance to see the story in the Addison Independent last week on the back page about the fire department and the many things that they respond to. So it's kind of a misnomer to call them the fire department, because they really are responding to a lot of other calls, you know, technical calls, as does our emergency medical service team. So just wanted to remind you of that. And it's from 5 to 8. They serve continuously during that time, and there are lots of places where you can buy tickets or you can just show up. So I just wanted to remind you of that. That's it.
It also works really great to do takeout.
Yes.
Just,
Ooh.
like you can get
Can just
takeout
walk up and
take
do
it home.
takeout, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really great.
Heather?
It's really very good. I think I'm good.
I just wanted to say thank you for doing the site visit out to East Middlebury earlier today to talk about the river project. I'm not sure if anybody had questions, or we just kind of saw everything there and had our questions answered, but it's pretty exciting for a lot of residents. As Kathleen said, it's been a couple of years since we've been out there, and it's nice to get started with the project again. I think probably tell residents that Amy will be working directly with at least some of them, to talk about the easements that are along Aussie Road and things like that, so.
I also left some project updates and project site maps with Peggy Peabody, and
Oh,
she is going to
great.
put them at the community house.
Thank you for doing that, too. That's great.
Did you grab that map that shows, so maybe we can make that a part of our file too, that, because Amy gave me a map that shows the changes the river's done over the years.
Yeah.
It was really
It's amazing to see.
educational,
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Farhad?
Well, my only question was that the project they're doing, how long is that going to sustain? If we have like 2 more Irenes, or how many more would it take?
Yeah, it's a good question. The modeling that they did, I'm trying to recall, we could probably ask Roy specifically, but it was supposed to take us through several of those major storms and beyond. And then it would probably then have to, that managed triangle area would then have to be dug back out and start over again, but that the walls should stay and the berm armoring should hold up too. It was that sort of managed area that would need to be taken out on a regular basis if there was big storms.
Yep.
Yeah. It was supposed to last us a good 100 years, but knowing that those
Irene
that
was
those
a
are going,
unique storm.
but knowing that they're coming more often, it might not last that long before needing to be managed. It's a good question.
Yeah.
Roy will do some modeling for that, and we would get to weigh in on that before it goes to the next stage.
Victor? I have nothing. So I'm excited. I think that the plan that we received on the bridges was better than the first one. I'm glad we pushed them to come back, because what did we end up losing 7 parking spaces or something versus?
It's 12.
It's 7,
Between
5 on
both
one.
of them.
7
7
but
on
I'm
one,
thinking,
5 on the
I'm
other.
thinking Main Street.
Yep.
Because we were always going to lose someone. But that was a big improvement, and I think that'll flow. I feel good about our bad luck that it's going to work, at least be workable. So
Yeah.
hope everybody has 2 weeks off here. So we've been meeting every week for a while now. So
Yeah.
all right, enjoy,
Yay.
and we'll adjourn at 8:58.
Wow. Before 9 o'clock again. Yes. Hope you have fun with the college runs.
Yeah.